Kåre, welcome to the podcast Lifestyle Design with me, Morgan Friedrud. I really wanted to have you on the podcast because I was at the No Mind Festival at Ängsbacka just a couple of weeks ago, and I had no clue of what Zen Coaching was, and I didn't know about you, but I heard a couple of friends talking about like, Kåre, we got to go to Kåre's workshop, and I got a tip from one of the videographers, which I was a part of, the team of media at Ängsbacka, to go to that workshop. And I just happened to have like that time to go to your workshop. And the experience was really tough on me emotionally. I didn't expect that. I tried to
That was the men's workshop?
the men's
was it?
workshop. Yeah, we were only men, like sitting, and we were doing a bunch of stuff. So, like, my first question to you is, what is your story, and how did you wind up like having that super powerful men's workshop?
Well, for the people listening, they might wonder, well, what happened in this workshop? I remember we were exploring strength and vulnerability. So we have vulnerability on one side, we have strength on the other side. And in our culture, especially men, but also women, learned somehow that vulnerability is weakness. So we're very suspicious about vulnerability, and everybody wants, to be empowered and strong. So what I was trying to show was that this vulnerability that we have as human beings is so beautiful and, the meaning of life in many ways. So we have to embrace it, honor it, but not without the strength. We have strength, we have courage, we have stamina, perseverance. So the workshop was about, finding the unity of strength and vulnerability and becoming whole. And I feel this is important for all humans, whether, male bodies, female bodies, whatever gender, doesn't matter. But anyway, we were only men, and it's very nice to be just guys together sometimes and do this kind of work. I could do exactly the same workshop for women. So it's not about being a man, but of course, when we're just guys together, I think we must have been 60 people up there in the
at least
cafe
60 people. And you said something now that it's nice to just be guys, and you asked us this question: what is the difference with us being only guys here and there's no females?
Yes.
So why did you ask that question?
Well, for me personally, when I sit in a circle or in a space with only men, like 60 men together, it is a very different feeling than sitting in a room of mixed people, men and women. So it's just to acknowledge that it is different. It feels different for most of us when we are in such a space. Wow, okay. And of course, at Ängsbacka, the guys are very ready and willing and wanting to dive into some emotions and some deeper aspects of themselves. So it's also a circle of men who have the courage to be vulnerable, actually. We know that at some level, you don't end up in Ängsbacka festival without readiness to meet some vulnerable sides. It's going to happen. So it's extra sweet to sit in a room of guys and knowing that they're ready to be vulnerable also, but not only vulnerable, also strong. So for me personally, it's just nourishing, and to explore what does brotherhood mean in the modern world. In a way, we're so disconnected from the ancestry. Most indigenous cultures, they have had an unbroken transmission through the ages of how to be a man, woman, how to be a citizen, how to be part of a community. But in our modern world, everything is become very strange. So in a way, we're trying to rediscover what it is to be a human being, a man, a woman in the modern world, from the heart, living from the heart. What is it? You know, it's an exploration.
We don't have a question for what is a man today. So if I would ask you, what is a man today? Because we had that sharing from a man that felt that he wasn't manly, and you asked such beautifully a couple of questions of, so what is a man? So we had that question on the table within the circle that we were sitting in, and we didn't like really get an answer to it, but I felt that it lifted a lot of my previous beliefs on what a man should be. It lifted a lot of pressure of what a man should be, because I've been like consciously working on how to be a man, how to be a provider, how to be strong, how to know martial arts, how to know how to pick up women, how to be an entrepreneur. So like this
Yeah,
force going forward. But I also have like a really strong feminine side since I was like really young, but that wasn't like really accepted, supported. It wasn't okay to cry where I grew up, and a lot of men here in Sweden, but also with different cultural backgrounds, like the crying and vulnerable part is not welcome into the
you're
space.
only allowed to show it with your most intimate partner and special moments, no?
Yeah, but that is also like one of the questions I was going to come into later, and we can take it. Uh, we can dive into that question right now. I was saving it for last, but let's dive into it. So, is it okay to be vulnerable as a man if you're in a heterosexual relationship with your woman, and is that the role she is playing to hold you in that space when you are vulnerable, when you're crying, or are you as a man not supposed to quote unquote leave your shit on her or
Yeah,
show her your shit?
see,
Yeah,
that's the way you formulate the question there,
yeah,
comes with that whole baggage that to be
yeah.
vulnerable is to give your shit to others. That's a very funny idea, you know?
Okay, let's
Uh,
unpack that.
yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, you're putting your shit on others, now they have to carry it. That's not very gentlemanly of you. Let
Yeah.
your woman carry your pain. So that's this idea, very sad idea we have about vulnerability being a burden. But if you turn it around 180 degrees and say your vulnerabilities, your tender heart, your love, your sweetness, your sensitivity, now you're sharing that with your partner. She gets to taste your sweetness and your tenderness and also the challenges you're facing in that arena of life that all of us face. But that's where the strength comes in, you know? So you're actually holding your own vulnerability while you're sharing it. So that for me is the role of a man and a woman. We hold our own vulnerability while we share it as a gift. So I'm not sharing it to give you my burden. I'm offering you my authentic being, and you know, any person who wants to be in a real relationship, that's what they want. You know, any person who's not ready for such depth of realness will run out the door, maybe. But then they're not ready for that. So you know, but it goes both ways. I remember many years ago, I was coaching a woman, young woman, and she was in a relationship, and she had the same program. She was like, "No, I hide my vulnerability from my guy." And I said, "Why do you do that?" Well, I'm afraid he will leave me if he sees how vulnerable I am. So same story, you know, as men have often. And then I ask what I often ask. Okay, So if you share your vulnerability, you're afraid he might leave you. Now, do you want to be with a man who's not interested in your vulnerability, who has no care for it or interest in that side of your being? Would you want to spend the rest of your life with such a person? And she said, no, 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 of course not. Well, there you have the answer, you know. So if she does share her depth of her vulnerability and he runs out the door and doesn't come back, that's not a disaster. It might be painful then and there, but it shows he was the wrong man. So would you rather find out now or in 10 years, you know, after 2 kids and shared house? And better find out now, you know. So you started asking, what is it to be a man? You know, I like in this workshop also, we talked about one is the biological side. We have different genitals, you know. We have different chemical soup, like the balance of testosterone and etc. So that has an impact on how we act and are in the world and how we sense ourselves and feel and communicate. So that's the biological side. But then we have the cultural side, the conditioning. Like that's why I like to ask guys, okay, so if you look at your father, just by looking at him, if he was the model and the teacher of what it means to be a man in the modern world, what did you learn? A man is supposed to be like this, using your father or other significant males in your childhood as models. So I think we explored this. So then we see how much we have taken from the culture, you know, that an idea about what a man should be. That's a cultural conditioning. So we have the biology, we have the conditioning, and actually it's very hard to separate. And that's why the discussions get so heated and difficult, because it's all biology, no, it's all conditioning. It's both, and they're enmeshed. So, no, for me, I happen to have a male body. The question is how to be a human being in a male body, you know. And personally, I want to be able to be vulnerable and sensitive, as well as strong and determined and focused. I want both these sides to be fully included. And it's been a huge journey to integrate the sensitive, tender side, partly because of biology and partly because of a lot because of conditioning. So I feel it's work in progress. It's like a lifetime of kind of cleaning out all that conditioning, which limits our freedom of choice and expression.
Bet you see it in a lot of people. You meet a lot of people through Ängstbacka, your workshops, your coaching, and through all of the years, because you've been doing it for such a long time. So do you have like a theme, or what are like the common issues that particularly men has when they seek coaching, or what are their like emotional roadblocks?
Yeah, it's interesting because my approach when I sit with somebody as a coach or friend, I don't emphasize gender really. I'm sitting with a person, you have your life, you have your challenges with you know, there are challenges with shame, with guilt, with being lost, with not knowing what to do, managing relationships. But generally with men, to embrace vulnerability is a bit of a bigger hurdle, I would say. But with just a little appropriate guidance, most men can go there, you know, especially those men who come to coaching, you know, they've already taken the step.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of men are caught in this program, which I very much have. No, a true man figures it out by himself and sorts it out by himself, and you know, if he is struggling, then he goes home and sits alone at home and figures it out, and then goes out and is the warrior, you know, and the hero. Do you recognize this?
Yeah. And so many of my male family members, but
Yeah.
we are softening up.
Yeah, so I feel this program is very unfortunate. I mean, there's also always some beauty in it. There's some truth in it, you know, uh, to deal with life's challenges and to face it myself. It's true, but to discard the value and usefulness of guidance and support and help from others is very unintelligent, actually. I often ask my clients who say, "Oh, why should I need a coach? You know, that's a weakness." So then I ask them, well, if you think about the best sports players in the Olympics, do they have any coaches? Yeah, of course. Do they have good coaches? No, they have the best coaches. Okay, so if the best and strongest people have the best coaches, doesn't that say something, you know? So actually, the intelligent people seek support. The people who really want progress and change, they seek out the people who can actually inspire them and support them. So for me, that's the intelligent choice. So I think in that workshop you went to, I mixed up because I had two men's workshops. Now I remember which one you went to. So in that workshop, we played with being a challenger from the heart, right?
Yeah,
So I'm looking at you and I'm calling you out on your bullshit. So that's a challenger position. When it comes from the heart, can be penetrate, you know. And if it penetrates, you can say that's quite a male energy. I penetrate with my challenge, and you crack or not. But if you crack, you see the truth of your own bullshit or your own self-deceit, and you crack and you soften. And then I change energy and become empathic, loving. Put a hand on your shoulder, look at you with friendliness. I don't need to continue to challenge, you know. So what happens in the world is we get these stereotypical males if we watch Hollywood movies, you know, like Tom Cruise, one of the most successful male heroes. Well, he's only like very one-sided. So what we want to see is this, there's an attraction to that energy, but we want to see the other side of the coin, which is the tender, empathic love. What is life without love, empathy, deep connection, compassion, you know? These things are not in opposition, they go together, and somehow we have managed to split them apart. So now I lost my thread, but when you were with your wife, I think in most relationships, the challenge number one comes we were not authentic because we think certain things are not allowed. We are unskillful in the way we express ourselves, so even our vulnerability comes out as a judgment or a demand. But fundamentally, what we haven't learned, most of us, is to hold our inner child with our own compassionate awareness. So we all have this inner child or this vulnerable part inside, wounded part. if I can hold it myself, I become the father, the parent of my inner child, my wounded child. Then I don't put it on you, my partner, to be the parent of my inner child. And I think there's an intelligence, to reacting to that. If your partner tries to make you the parent of their inner child, something is off. I'm not I'm not your father. I'm your partner. I want to meet you at that level while feeling your vulnerable side. So trusting that you have the capacity to take care of your inner child and that you share it with me is your gift to me. It doesn't make me the parent of your inner child. So that's what we need to learn if we want to have sober communication when we trigger each other. Because when we trigger each other, it's basically the inner child is getting triggered. And then we become kind of like a tantrum. We become like a child. And then we're behaving like children with each other. And two children are not so sober, when they're...
No. It never ends.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So you have like this process that is basically based on like seeing the other person and asking questions. So what is your like story with how you came up with this like magnificent tool?
Yeah, I was interested in like the fundamental questions. Who am I? What is consciousness? What is true relating? These three questions were very much alive for me when I was around 20, like demanding to be answered. And then I started trying to answer those questions myself and by reading, reading philosophy, psychology. And the more I studied and the more I was thinking about it, the more I realized how difficult those questions were. So in a way, it took me down the rabbit hole of self-reflection, philosophical studies, existentialism, phenomenology, Heidegger, Sartre, a lot of difficult contemplations. And writing a lot, journaling, self-reflecting about life, and trying to sort out my emotional challenges without asking anybody or sharing with anybody, of course, just by myself and my books and my journal. Anyway, at some point during that process, I also came across Eastern philosophy and Zen Buddhism and these kinds of things, which attracted me a lot because it was a very dramatically different way of presenting existential themes than I was used to from Western philosophy. But it took me a long time before I took the step into actual meditation retreat. So I was in my late 30s before I went to my first meditation retreat. But
What
then
was
it
the
was like,
meditation retreat? I'm just curious.
sorry,
And what was the meditation retreat?
it was with Thich Nhat Hanh and the monks of Plum Village in Bordeaux, France.
All
So
right.
Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen master, it's a big center in Bordeaux. So I went there for a 10-day retreat. And that was, after reading his books, I felt this guy, he can say things in a simple, clear way. And at the end of each book, they said, you can come to Plum Village and practice meditation anytime. Just contact us. I said, okay, I'll go there. So I went there and then I went back and back. So I lived there about a year altogether. So I shifted from a life of contemplation, self-reflection, to more meditation. So, of course, the big step in life is to go into meditation. Meditation is a completely different approach to life than anything else.
Yeah.
So once you enter that path and you get hooked on that, there's no turning back. It's like, okay. But we live in a world, Western world, which is not very supportive of meditative awareness. We're a doing culture, technology and speed and success and money and houses and cars. It's driven. It's a driven society. So, and the whole world is becoming like this. Anyway, once I entered that world of meditation, I got very hooked on that. And I decided that's what I want to spend my life doing. So I moved to Ängsbacka as a volunteer, and I lived at Ängsbacka, and I ended up living several years at Ängsbacka. And that's where, and then I started studying with all kinds of teachers, Osho teachers, but especially a big impact had Marshall Rosenberg of nonviolent communication. I studied with him. So basically what I did was I took the best of the mindfulness teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh and Plum Village, combined it with the teachings and practices of nonviolent communication, added the principles of coaching, which is asking and listening, and I call that Zen Coaching. And then I've been developing that for 19 years. Every year, it's an organic development. What I often say in my workshops is that I'm attracted to any teacher and teaching that is based on non-doing, non-effort. So it's not actually, Zen coaching is not actually a technique. It's more an understanding. Of presence. Presence is a non-doing. When I sit with you, I'm in presence. You are in presence. So we can meet in a non-doing space. And then out of that non-doing space arises some kind of doing, like talking is a doing. My hands are moving, that's a doing. But this doing is more arising out of presence. If we're disconnected from presence, then our doing is coming from the thinking mind, and it's more based on tension and stress. So, there's a kind of a pandemic of stress in the world. And it comes from, in my view, acting from thinking, acting from mind, which is based on some kind of basic fear, basic sense of lack. Something is lacking, and my doing is gonna fill my lack, is gonna satisfy me. Whereas doing and speaking from presence, from being, is coming out of a fullness. So it's more like a sharing. I'm giving something. And then you give something, and then we're in this kind of dance, like a tango. It's not somebody's giving and somebody's taking. That's what makes couples dance so beautiful. Both people are giving and receiving simultaneously. So for me, that's the ideal way to live life. Spontaneously flowing in presence, in this dance of giving and receiving, where the separation between giving and receiving dissolves. So in the giving, I'm receiving. In the receiving, I'm giving. There's a sense of unity and co-creative joy in that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And on what you're saying, I saw some statistics on the biggest reason why people are on sick leave from their work is not any longer that they have injured themselves physically. It's now a mental crisis.
Yeah.
That is like pushing people to go on sick leaves, and it's not like during a healing time, which like your physical body would have needed to get to get well from an influenza or a broken arm or whatever. Now it's like it's called in Sweden utbrändhet,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
burnout, and that number is like consistently rising. And on to my next question is like, for what issues or problems are people most coming to you with, or for Zen coaching? Is there a theme, or is everybody just like going into the big famous wall, as we say here in Sweden, and crashing and burning? Or what are the main issues for why people are coming?
I would say there is no main issue, but we can say that living a human life comes with a number of big challenges. It's not easy to be a human being for most of us.
Mm.
It's a challenging task to, in a way, it's easier to be born a bird, or a fish.
Yeah.
Everything is programmed. Your instincts tell you to do something. If you succeed, you live. If you don't, you die. But there's no what I call mind fuck around it. The fish isn't like spending the entire day being frustrated at the other fish that didn't want to play with him.
Yeah.
So
we have a unique problem.
we have a unique problem, but this unique problem is related to our unique gift. So I would say human beings are extremely open, receptive, and sensitive in a positive way. We're so open, we can experience the finest and deepest aspects of existence consciously. It's like we have this apparatus of perception, inner perception, senses. That means we can experience the depth of love, the depth of oneness and peace and unity and compassion, love, tenderness. We can create the most amazing art, that can touch the strings, like great musicians, artists. What they can create and what they can touch in us is awesome. Now, this awesomeness comes with a price. And the price is that we also get so disturbed and we get so caught up in it's like we're the most fine-tuned car, It needs exactly everything, right? Petrol, everything has to be perfectly tuned and matched. Some old Mercedeses, they drive 1 million kilometers and they're just humping along. But we're like these fine-tuned race machines, which means we are also easily disturbed. So people who come to Zen coaching sessions, I would say, are people who are ready to face themselves. Because in Zen coaching, we don't promise, come here, we'll fix you. We say, come here, we'll help you look at yourself, look inside. So the people who are attracted to Zen coaching are people who are ready to look inside. And mostly that comes only after you've exhausted the external possibilities.
Yeah.
That's why
For sure.
that's why most of my clients and students are more than 30 years old. Because when you're 20, 22, 25, you still believe often that any problem you might have can be solved in the external. You have a bit more success, you get a bit more admiration or more money, or you can live in a more fun place, or you find the man or woman of your dreams, or you have children. You have some success, you have some social status. So there's some kind of fundamental idea that these things will fulfill us. And so the best situation is if you're able to fulfill all your desires early and discover that didn't fulfill you,
Yeah, exactly. I
So
think Jim Carrey wishes that everybody would like experience success
yeah,
and realize that success doesn't make you happy.
Exactly. Nothing feels like success.
Exactly.
However, yeah, so that's often either we fulfill our dreams and we see something is missing, more important than success, or fulfilling our external dreams. And the other thing is we crash, life hits us with a sledgehammer, with a burnout, our partner leaves us, somebody dies who's very close to us, suddenly, unexpectedly. We lose all our money, lose our job, something really shakes your system, crisis. So as a coach, I always see crisis as a big opportunity. It's actually treated well, a crisis can be a fantastic new beginning. But you need generally to get some good support. So if you then come to somebody who sees a crisis as an opportunity, not just something to fix, but something to look deeply into, what is this crisis teaching me about life? So my clients are all kinds of people, The other day I had a young man, 26 years old, student of psychology. Then today I got an email from another client who's heading a billion kroner philanthropic business globally. Different problems,
Yeah.
but very much the same. The human, when you get down to the basics, so many of human problems boil down to relationship issues. And the relationship issues, when you look more deeply into them, have to do with my relationship with myself and my vulnerable side and my powerful side. So I like to say every problem arises out of a disconnection with a deeper part of myself. Every problem in life, external life, arises out of a disconnection with a deeper part of myself. If that is true, which I'm pretty convinced it is, then the solution to every problem is reconnecting to a deeper part of yourself. So in other words, you can have 100 different people with 100 different problems, but the solution is the same for all of them. So that's why in a coaching session, the problem can disappear in 1 hour without the external situation having changed. It's experienced differently. From being an intolerable problem, it becomes a creative challenge.
Yeah. And what you're saying now is like so in tune with what I've been so curious about, your answer about this, like the dance or the correlation between your inner world, what's going on in the inner world, and your outer world. So do you have like a story about somebody you've been working with anonymously, of course, that has been doing like changes within their inner world that later on had an effect on the outer world? Because we live in this outer world, and of course like there are stresses, and we're trying to achieve these success, and we are doing, but we are also experiencing something internally, but we usually shut those feelings down. We don't listen to them. We just like are like super focused on like going after it, achieving it, because we think that that will be the solution. But our body or the universe, whatever you want to call it, is like constantly like whispering to us that something is going on, or trying to give us cues on that this is maybe not the right path. So like the relationship between the inner world and the outer world, how would you like describe that? And if you can give us some example on how somebody has changed their inner world without changing their outer world at first, and how later on their outer world changed.
Yeah, well, that is the basic principle we are working with in Zen coaching. So every client, every session experiences this, I would say. So I could take every client as my example, because what we do in Zen coaching is we help people connect to a deeper part of themselves, which often means going through some challenging feelings. So if I'm avoiding certain feelings and sensations in my body, then I get externally focused. And I try to fix it out here, but the problem is here. And the problem is actually not the feeling or the sensation. The problem is that I'm avoiding the feeling and sensation.
Mm.
And by avoiding it, I'm disconnecting from the deeper source of resources and love and power underneath those feelings. So that becomes like a block. So my fear of this feeling blocks me from connecting deeper with myself. And then I get even more focused on the outside. And generally it doesn't work, you know. The same problems keep reappearing, even relationship issues. Oh, this relationship is hopeless. We end it. Then 1 year later, I have the same problem with a new partner, you know. It's just being recreated, you know, because nothing changed here. So I don't know. There's endless number of feedbacks of people saying to me who come to the training that without this training, like for instance, several have said to me, yeah, I had such a difficult relationship to my father, my mother, all my life, and because of stuff that happened in early childhood, you know, resentments and disconnection and anger and frustration, and then they did their inner work and they met those feelings inside and came to a deeper compassion for themselves and others, and started to be able suddenly to see their mother or their father with different eyes. So it's so touching for me when I hear stories like that, where they say, I managed to have a loving connection with my mother before she died.
Yeah.
No, it was like the last 2 years of her life, and finally we connected, you know, in this lifetime. We couldn't before, but after this inner work, I was able, you know. Or parents, like a guy, 50-year-old guy, came to my training in Norway. A teenage daughter, often, you know, difficult communication. And he was inspired after a workshop, and he was gonna spend some hours only with her. And he was curious, how would that be after this inner work he had done? And I met him 2 weeks later by chance in a coffee shop. And I said, so how did it go? And he said, we had the best meeting of my entire life. And I said, so, wow, that's nice to hear.
Beautiful.
What did you do? They were driving a car for 2-3 hours together. I said, so what did you do? And he said, nothing. I listened.
Yeah. I love that.
For the first time in her life, she
Yeah.
experienced her father really listening. So then she started opening up, you know? And you can only do that. See, listening, I consider the most sacred capacity of a human being. And we cannot listen, truly listen, if we are identified with our thinking mind. Because listening is a capacity of the heart of our being, and it's very receptive.
Yeah.
So I have to be open. I have to take down my defenses. I don't have anything to defend or justify or convince or rescue or help. You know, fathers, mothers, they all think they have to help their children all the time. But all this helping gets in the way of the true help, which is just be there, see them, hear
Yeah.
them.
But this is for me has been like super difficult. I don't know if like other men can relate, that they want to fix their wives' problems when they are talking. I'm hearing this from so many female friends, but also from the male friends. And that is like so hard for me to just shut up and listen and be there without what you were saying, like the responses, the fixing, the attacking back or whatever is going on in my field. So how can you become a better listener as a partner, whether you're female or male? But I'm talking from a male perspective. What I'm hearing, that we are so eager to try to fix it or try to say, well, but I told you to fix that problem that way, or you should go to that to fix that problem, or like stop trying to fix and just start to listen. How can we just start to listen to another one?
It's called meditation.
Yeah.
That's why it's not a quick fix, you know. It's not something you can do. That's the listening is not a doing. So, secret to be a great listener is to relax and enjoy, I like to say. Relax, enter non-doing, which means to be like a big open space, to have the inner space, which requires a willingness to be in not knowing. So you have to take all your knowledge, put it in a bag and put it to the side and be open like a child. Now, we are so identified with our knowledge. Oh, I'm going to listen to you with all my knowledge. And then the pressure from that knowledge to come up with a solution is so strong. So I'm actually not in a receptive mode while I listen. I'm taking your words into my conceptual framework, generating a solution and providing it. That's why coaching became such a popular thing in the world, because a number of people discovered that a much more effective way of helping people is to ask questions and listen. It goes much deeper. The answers come from the client, not from the coach. You're much more empowered. You discover your own answers. So the Zen coaching training is really a training in meditation. Zen means meditation. So to be in a state of openness, receptivity, and to be connected more with the heart than with the head, be open. And that requires what I talked about earlier, to be comfortable with my own uncomfortable feelings. So you could say to become a true listener is, first of all, to become a true listener to myself. And to become a true listener to myself means to embrace my feelings and emotions with compassion. So until I'm able to be aware of what I'm feeling and sensing in my body in the moment and embrace it with some kind of loving awareness, receiving my own sensations and feelings, that's what I mean by listening to myself, receiving myself. Until I can do that, I cannot really be a great listener to others. So that's why you can't really learn listening as a technique. Listening is a byproduct of some real inner work, emotional work. And the good news is it can happen with the right guidance. It can happen quickly. We can like snap out of this knowledge-based fixing mind. We can quickly, with some guidance, we can quickly become a great listener. But then the force of habit is not disappearing so easily. That's why, it's actually quite practice, quite the work.
Because I'm seeing so much of myself within like this thinking mind. I'm listening with the thinking mind and trying to solve some issues or solutions, and not just being. Even though I have like a lot of experience with meditation and vipassana and whatnot, what I really got struck by the Zen coaching session that I had was that if I would only have meditated, I would have like maybe a good meditating session. and getting like more in tune with myself, calm my nervous system down, and whatever is happening while you're meditating. What I felt with the Zen coaching was that I had like some specific thing I was struggling with emotionally. If I only would have sat and meditated with it, um, maybe I'm not that good at like resolving the emotional tension, but with the help of question and somebody else sitting in front of me, observing me, I really felt that like something just like dissolved magically, like melted butter. It just like,
Yeah,
and
and
I
this was
came to some like a totally new realization that I wasn't seeing before. And it wasn't that this coach specifically was trying to get me somewhere.
exactly.
So
It-
how do you explain what just happened?
It's also interesting. This was just a 30-minute session,
It was
right?
only 30 minutes. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
And I only did it one time.
yes,
So I love like the
yeah,
quick therapies like NLP. I've been doing
yeah.
EFT a lot of time, but I've been like having like this specific issue I want to resolve. I can do it with EFT, NLP, but Zen coaching was like something different. So I was like really stoked about learning more about it.
Well, you could say Zen coaching is like water, operates like water. You know, it doesn't make a big fuss, but somehow it finds its way all the way into every crack, you know.
Yeah.
So it works more like that. It's subtle.
Mm.
So it's a soft power. So the coach doesn't have an agenda for where you're supposed to go. There's a trust that life will take you where you need to go. So it's based on presence and trust. And when you say meditation alone doesn't take you so quickly, so deep, I agree. And it's, as I see it, also related to our Western mentality. You know, we are extremely conditioned to using our brain, knowledge. I mean, the amount of years in school putting knowledge into our head for most people is immense, and the whole society is mentally oriented. So the shift, the magical shift, is when we don't try to get rid of that, but we take a breath and we drop into presence. And then we ask, well, what's happening right now? Can you describe it? And can you allow it? Can you say yes to it? And these simple questions, with the support of somebody, makes us see the details of our inner experience and find a yes to it. And when we find the yes to it, it's like the water flows.
Yeah.
And then something opens suddenly,
Yeah.
unexpectedly.
Exactly what I felt.
Yeah. So I like to call it the two wings of personal growth. One wing is meditation, which is receptivity. I receive everything without judging anything. The other is inquiry, which is being curious about my experience, to understand it with my whole being. So that's where the questions, the active engagement with my experience, like, what is this experience? How does it actually feel? Where in my body do I feel it? How would I describe it? Can I allow it? What is it related to? So inquiry, active questioning, which is a questioning more from the heart than from the mind. So when you combine these two, meditation and inquiry, into meditative inquiry, then a lot can happen in a short time, seemingly as if by magic.
Yeah.
Whereas
It felt magic.
trying to figure
That's
out
true.
solutions can last forever and not lead anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful put. And I got one last question. Time is running out. I could speak with you for a long time. What I'm feeling right now. So Thank you for first and foremost for all the wisdom, what you're sharing, the work you are doing. And the last question is, because that you've been working with your field of expertise for so long, what makes you excited about humanity, or what are you most excited about for our future?
Yeah, that's quite a big question, eh?
Yeah, a good question to round up with.
Yeah. Well, I feel that humanity and the world is in dire straits. It's not looking great. Um, the amount of challenges we're facing and going to face in the years ahead, to me, it looks big.
Yeah, it is
And
big.
what I'm positively excited about is that there is in this world the beauty of another dimension of life, which is available in any moment, in any place. It's the dimension which we find when we enter through meditation, through presence, and when we process our unhealed stuff. Then we gain access to what we can call the magic of the moment, or the mystical. So lately I've been enjoying this phrase, the mystical in the ordinary. That the ordinary things, a cup of cacao, or sitting chatting, or looking at the trees. I'm sitting in a cabin in nature, green trees, just ordinary green leaves. But when you're in touch with deep presence, and you have some kind of deeper inner connection, then when you look at the leaf in the sunlight, you're struck by the incredible magic of it, the mystery of a leaf. Everything, this whole planet is a total mystery, a magical mystery tour, you can say. And this excites me, that whatever happens, in the end, the world cannot be saved because it will be burnt up by the sun. Everything is impermanent. It will happen sooner or later. You will die, I will die, and the planet will get burnt up by the sun. So in a way, it's not a tragedy. It is just how things are, impermanence. But of course, we don't want to quicken it by, self-demolition, like make ourselves go extinct unnecessarily. But for me, the hopeful thing is that when I and we together touch into deeper presence, then love awakens, compassion awakens, and we can smile, we can offer love, we can experience the magic of a leaf or anything, cup of coffee. And life is good in that moment, It's like we're tapping into this other dimension. And what I feel is the openness to this dimension, which you can call by different names according to your preference. The openness is so much bigger than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's like people are really hungry and open. It's like, yes, even we work in the townships of South Africa with people living in the most difficult circumstances of crime and drugs and murder and rape and poverty. And we have workshops, Zen Coaching workshops for a lot of young people there. It's a social action project. And I was thinking, how is this going to work? Inner fulfillment. You teach inner fulfillment to somebody who lives with no money, no father, in a gangster-filled area, dangerous, can get killed any moment.
No.
Maybe they're more interested in money and safety than, inner fulfillment. But actually, they are so hungry for inner fulfillment.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
like, we need that inner peace, inner strength, inner fulfillment to be able to live in this incredibly challenging circumstance. So that gives me hope, that inner connection is such a value and it's so available, and to spread these understandings and tools that really work to as many people as possible gives me a great satisfaction. So I often say, if you feel depressed about the world, which there are many thousands of reasons to feel depressed about the world all the time, just open any newspaper any day. I feel that the antidote is to, be the change you're looking for in the world. We have to be the love, the peace, the compassion. We have to contribute something. If we don't contribute something and feel that what we're doing is a meaningful contribution, then the troubles of the world will crush us. So I say, turn the pain into a healing process. Don't just think about all the negativities, but go into the personal healing process. And then be some kind of contribution on a daily basis for inner connection. Then everything is more bearable and we bring some light everywhere.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And if somebody is interested in contacting you or more interested in Zen coaching, where can they find you?
Well, the best thing I always say is come to a 5-day workshop called the Zen Way of Coaching, Relaxing into Being, which we offer in many countries, several countries, in Sweden, January and April at Ängsbacka, also in Poland, South Africa. So come to this 5-day workshop and you'll get a big, yummy taste. If not, just go to the website, zencoaching.com, easy to find. And also you can find many coaches there, all kinds of workshops, online things, also on YouTube. If you Google search for Zen Coaching on YouTube, there's a lot of videos out there. And you can find a coach. Like you had this amazing experience, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Now there's a whole list of great coaches available, phone call away on the website. So I always say to people, tell me one good reason not to have your own coach.
Yeah. No reason at all.
Tell me a great reason not to have a coach.
Yeah.
I can't afford it. It's expensive. Well, it costs a bit, but many things cost some money, which we spend money on, which are less important.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like when somebody says that it costs too much, but I always try to see what is the cost of me continuing like I'm doing now.
Yeah.
What
What's
am
the
I
cost of a
missing, or
divorce?
what
What's
is
the
it
cost of a
costing?
divorce? What's the cost of a divorce?
I don't think it's cheap.
It's not cheap.
I got 2 older brothers that have gone through that process, and it wasn't cheap.
It's not cheap. So you can take thousands of coaching sessions for the cost of one divorce.
Yeah, exactly. And just like to clarify one piece of like getting coaching from one of your coaches that's on the website, is it possible to do it online, or is it through
Online
phone, or
works fine. Just like
it
we're
works
talking
fine?
here, I work
Awesome.
mostly on Zoom. It's perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because of the convenience.
Yeah.
Awesome. So good to have you here, Kåre. Thanks you for all the insights. And it's been a pleasure talking to you. And thank you for all the good you're doing in the world. And I would love to have you here another time. And
I would love to.
thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.